was gonna get in a kayak and film a little intro for the video, but the afternoon thunderstorms didn't want to cooperate. I've been fascinated with sawmills and the lumber industry in Louisiana for many reasons. Right here where I live, where I grew up on the bayou where, you know, I first got in a pirogue, and which is the 80 Arpit Canal. But when I was born, before we moved here, I lived on Bayou Lafourche in the St. John community, right up the bayou from Thibodeau. And, but getting back to Chagdo, the 80 Arpit Canal, I've always noticed like red brick infrastructure, like old abandoned stuff my entire life. And I've always been curious as to, you know, what that is. I didn't know if it was an old fort thing or a military thing or you know, I had no idea. Just knew it was old and dilapidated. And over the years with dredging the bayou and it's been demolished even further, whatever it was. And I've come to learn though that it was likely assets involved in the cypress industry. I've seen borrow pits or ponds dug for high density, you know, residential development, whether it's over in the North Thibodeau area in the old Rienzi plantation, or here on Sugar Ridge in Chagdo. When you see them open up the earth and dig big ponds to use the dirt elsewhere and make a beautiful pond, but before the pond fills with water, you can see all the old cypress stumps, and it's mind-boggling. It's amazing to me. And I never put two and two together, you know. I didn't understand the history of our area in that way. I wasn't really even intrigued, but not enough to, like, you know, read something. And so anyway, fast forward to me getting a kayak, me getting in the bayous and exploring the swamps and just wanting to be more familiar with the mud that I sprung from. And lo and behold, like, I'm understanding more that before oil field was a thing here, which is the predominant industry now that all of your like working class brethren and family and friends basically work for that industry. And at the same time, back in the lumber, in the cypress boom, it was very similar. I'm from Donner. I'm not from there, but my Lejani lineage is from there. My immediate Lejani lineage, my great-grandpa, my great-grandmother, my grandfather was born there. My dad was born in Franklin, which how Cajuns were strong out west with the railroad is a whole nother story that was used to export these logs for lumber. But I'm from my stock, my Lejani stock, the last name that I wear, is from that very specific area, and my family was employed working for that industry. Like now, working class people work for the oil industry. You know, I've always been part of the working class. As far as my Cajun roots and ancestry, I'm learning. And the working class back then, rather than being in the oil field, was in the Cypress Swamps often. Also working for working for the WPA once the Cypress boom was over. Like many of our great grandparents, mine worked for the WPA and built things in Houma, Louisiana, and around the surrounding areas. But we were, laborers that labored rather than oil rigs in sawmills. And I'm just learning that. It's fascinating to me. It's both frustrating and informative at the same time because, it's a rich cultural history. It was a way that a lot of families were able to pull money from the land that we were born on by having this job that helps. That was not a thing before. It was either trapping or fishing or whatever. More like the native people and Cajun people behaved and tried to live a more sustenance type life, which is poor, right, by American standards. But when industry comes in and you can make a really secure living, you can recognize that the trade-off is, hey, these cypress swamps are going to disappear, but does that really matter? I need to feed my family. And that same vibe is sort of still exists today with the oil field. And it's interesting, there's a patch of swamp. I'm going to put it in the link below. There's a patch of swamp over in Tangipahoa Parish that was, it's old growth. It's an old growth stand of cypress. And while it's been saved from lumbering, from the lumber industry, and preserved for all these years, like the rest of the cypress swamps that I'm in the Gibson and Bayou Black area that are just beautiful, the reality is they will be, due to saltwater intrusion, they're gonna die off. They had those type of cypress swamps where there's nothing but marsh now. They had swamps and bayous, as far down as Leeville. Interesting. And saddening. It's tough because this is our state, and yes, we've got jobs out of the deal, but the immense wealth is disproportionately left this state. There's been a few millionaires and a couple billionaires made of Louisiana stock along the way, sure, but those are outliers. And so while it's a proud history of a working class, it's still a marring history of exploitive practices by industry capitalists of the day. But what do we do? Right? What do we do about that? Of course there's a problem, but how do you fix it? And so at a certain point, it's like, I don't want to fight anymore. I want to just, hey, here's a thing that I learned. Wow, it's really similar to this other thing. Maybe it means we'll never get off this cycle, and that's okay. So maybe we just need to, just like you can't convince that family member to change their lifestyle, and you just love them extra hard so you can enjoy the time that you have left. Maybe in that vein, we do the same thing with Louisiana-ness, especially south of I-10 Louisiana-ness. Especially. I know we talk a lot of shit about y'all guys up around the ankle and the calf, lower calf area. But the bottom of the boot's where the soul is, and you know it. So in that vein, I have like turned my mind's eye to more immediately local history and historic things. And something that I've passed for years while I drove back and forth to Texas to go deer hunting is the Sawmill Museum in Paterson, Louisiana. It's beautiful to me that it's slowing down in life, slowing down in age, changing perspective a bit, kind of trying to appreciate what I already have rather than ruminate and be upset about what I don't have yet, right? A way to do that is to look at the beauty of what's already around me, and that's Cypress Swamps and its bayous and or bayous, but you know what I'm saying, and its sunsets and egrets, right? It's that smell. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. That smell of water, of fresh water, right? And then every now and then that organic smell of something dead, but that's also life, right? There's something special about appreciating that and being appreciative of what you already have. And in that vein, after passing it up for years, I decided to go visit the Sawmill Museum over in Paterson, Louisiana. And me and my buddy Josh Turner took a ride over there, and I thought it was a really cool and informative place. I hope you like it. It was a fun place to visit. Can't wait to get back into the Cypress Swamps with the new knowledge of the things I learned at the Sawmill Museum. The moss pickers, how to spell Passepartout. I've heard Passepartout all my life, but how the fuck you spell that? It was on a sign, Them little pirogues made out of single cypress hunk of wood, you know what I'm saying? Look wobbly than a motherfucker. And here I am in a pirogue made out of oil. For real, really. As much as I love my yak, it's made out of oil, dog. So it's an interesting vibe. It's an interesting connectivity. And I don't know. I just kind of been on one about my history and I got some other things coming that I'd like to talk about Gibson. I don't know enough about the history yet, but I'm trying to learn and figure out some stuff so I don't just spew bullshit. So, this is my trip over to Paterson to finally stop at a place I've skipped past a billion, million, zillion times. Go and get fat and drunk. I hope you dig it. It was fun to go out there, and if you get a chance, go check it out. The old man at the desk said, "Hey, when y'all leave, if you enjoyed yourself, please try to get us some more visitors. Go visit. It's free. It's gonna be there for nothing for as long as the state funds it. There's no better way to get the state to stop funding something than if it doesn't get used. So use it. Go educate yourself on the beautiful Cypress Swamps of Louisiana. I hope you enjoy this. Peace." This little motherfucker right here look like a wet ass to me. My grandfather worked for the WPA and did what he could. I think they raised pigs. My great-grandfather was Nolan Lajani, here in Donner. And my grandmother used to pluck chickens for Chester's back in the day. I think it was after my grandfather died, my great-grandfather had died. Because I remember my dad talking about the memories. And he remembers sitting in the chicken plucking shed with diapers on. So that would have been like, what, late 50s, early 60s probably. But if you know, you know. Chester's, the gizzards and the livers and the Bloody Marys. What you talking about, boy? I used to fuck with them hard, bro. Ain't no doubt. I wish it was open. I'd go get me a Virgin Mary in there for old time's sake. But Cypress Inn. They just tore down. I think Oncals was a Cypress Inn. I don't know the story with Cypress Inn. I don't know if what that was about, but Chester's, places like Chester's and Oncals were Cypress Inn. So, sure, it has something to do with the cypress industry back in the day. And lumber towns, who knows? Because both of them were close to big stands of cypress swamp that would have been harvested back in that cypress boom. So just cool history. We know a lot about our petroleum history and our seafood. But the cypress industry is like a bygone thing that I've never heard a lot about. But it's super interesting, and it makes me super proud of the human stock from which I've come. Honestly, there's some behaviors that we can change and morph and do better with over time, and that's up to each succeeding generation. And I'm willing to do the heavy lifting required of me to participate in that generational growth. And I'm very proud of these human beings that fought so hard to live here. Whether it was before outside capitalists, industrialists came in and put everyone to work with jobs, or because those jobs were not easy, whether we're talking about oil field or we're talking about the cypress field or the cane field for that matter. But even before those industries, trapping and hunting and fishing and tending to a backyard garden wasn't, that was also a hard way to live. So trade-offs were made, and it is what it is, and we are where we are. And I just really feel like I've been doing a lot of my own lineage history in my own family tree, and I feel compelled to do my best to try to understand the economic forces at play at different points of my family lineage and the role, because the Louisianas were laborers. Whatever industry was here, we were subjected to the necessary labor of that industry. That's what we did. And in the Landrys too. I'm from, as far as my dad, I'm half Louisiana, quarter Louisiana, quarter Landry, right? On my dad's side. And so Landrys were humping and pumping and doing their best to produce a cane crop. And the Louisianas were in the swamps doing their best to eke a living in the Cypress Swamps, working for sawmills or doing who knows what. I don't know what particular jobs, but also sure, probably, raising pigs and doing whatever else they could to augment a living, just like it's done today. So little side hustles. Interesting. It's interesting when you get older and you slow down a bit, what you find time and impetus to appreciate. It's interesting. This has been under my nose for 44 years of my life, and I'm just now starting to slow down enough to smell it a little bit. Sometimes it smells like a fart. Sometimes it smells like jasmine.